One of the lessons I learned this year is that sometimes the very best plans go awry for no fault of your own. That's why looking at marketing in 90-day increments is such a powerful way to keep your business on track while providing you flexibility to adapt as the world changes. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, here's the show. Welcome to More Than a Few Words, marketing conversation for business owners. MTFW is part of the Digital Toolbox, and this is your host, Lorraine Ball. And today, we're going to talk about some marketing fundamentals. And I can't think of a better person to have this conversation with than Tim Fitzpatrick. Tim is an entrepreneur and business owner with expertise in marketing and business growth. He's got 20 plus years of entrepreneurial experience with a passion for growing and developing businesses. And that passion has served him well throughout his career as he has operated and managed distribution companies. And today, he's running an organization called Rialto. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Lorraine. I appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. I always love to talk to another marketer. Tell me a little bit about briefly kind of what you're doing now, and then I really want to dive into this topic of marketing fundamentals because I think you had a really interesting starting point for the conversation.
You know what, Rialto Marketing, we primarily work with service businesses, and we help them simplify marketing. They can grow with less stress, and we do that by helping them create and implement a plan so that they can communicate the right message to the right people. To me, marketing all starts with the fundamentals. You know, if you skip the fundamentals, it's like building a house without a foundation.
You are absolutely preaching to the choir when you talk to me about fundamentals and planning. And as we were talking before the show, you actually referenced a 90-day marketing plan. And I like that idea of marketing in little bites. What's that all about?
The reason I love a 90-day marketing plan is because it helps people from getting overwhelmed. Plans eliminate distractions, and our businesses are changing so fast. You know, if you had spent thousands of dollars on a, 1 or 2 year marketing plan at the beginning of this year, you would have burned it come March. So we need to have the ability to adapt and have a plan that's somewhat fluid. And a 90-day plan allows you to do your marketing in 90-day sprints, learn what works, what's not, make course corrections, and then just wash, rinse, and repeat.
Absolutely. And I love the idea of looking at the world in 90-day increments because it's a manageable amount of time. There's an end, way back when I was in graduate school, I used to live my life one semester at a time. And I thought if I could just get through the semester, then I'd have that break and I could really focus all my energy on the semester, knowing I could catch my breath. Yeah. And kind of start over again. So as you're building this 90-day plan, what goes into it?
There's 6 parts. I like to keep things as simple as I possibly can. So the first part is who's your target market. You have to understand who you're trying to reach, who you're going to serve. Even if you start and you just have a paragraph that's just a summary of who are the 1 to 3 ideal client types that you want to work with. Once you understand who you're trying to work with, who you want to attract, it becomes so much easier to identify where you need to be to attract those exact people. So that's the first part of it.
One of the things that I talk to business owners a lot about, particularly early stage companies, is they're always a little afraid to pick a target because they're afraid they're going to miss out on somebody else. And I just think that the more clear you get, the better job you do of communicating with the people most likely to buy from you.
Yes, and just because you're narrowing doesn't mean those are the only types of people you're going to work with. It just means that that's where you're going to focus your marketing efforts. Because if you try to reach everyone, you're going to fail. It's impossible. You cannot do a good job at doing it.
Okay, so step number 1, I have my target. I know who I want to talk to. I know who I want to sell to. What's next?
Second step is what's your marketing goal for the next 90 days, okay? It needs to be specific. It needs to be measurable. It could be we want to bring on 5 new clients in the next 90 days. Fine, great. This is what I would typically call an outcome-based goal. So there's a lot of things beyond your control in an outcome-based goal, which is okay. I like to tell people don't get too attached to it because, again, in March, you had this goal, the whole world imploded here and things changed drastically. That's something that could have significantly impacted your ability to hit the goal, but you have to have some type of goal that you're striving for. You have to know where you're heading.
I love that advice because it gives you a way of grading yourself at the end of the quarter.
Yes.
Did you accomplish what you set out to do? It's okay if you didn't. Well, why not? What could we have done differently?
Exactly.
All right. So, target, goal, and number 3 is?
Number 3 is what's your marketing budget and what resources do you have? So when we look at resources, that's time, right? So are you going to be investing some of your time in your marketing? Do you have staff people that are going to? How much time do they have each week? And how much money do you have to invest? Both of those are going to determine what you choose to focus on. If it's just you and you have no money and you've got 5 hours a week, well, that's okay. But, you can't take on the world when you got 5 hours a week, right? So we need to understand that so we can be realistic about what we're going to focus on in our plan.
That is great advice. I've got 10 hours a week I'm going to spend it targeting this particular group of people. And my goal is to close 2 new customers in the quarter. Now what?
Next step is what is your current marketing plan? And I understand a lot of businesses may not have a current marketing plan. That is okay. But what we need to do in this step is we need to identify where we're currently at, because we can't figure out what we need to do to get to where we want to be unless we know where we're starting from. It's just like your GPS. Your GPS can't tell you how to get to the airport unless you tell it where you're starting from. So what I look at for a marketing plan, to me, there are a few main channels for marketing. One is your strategy and the fundamentals. So do you understand your target market? And do you have good messaging that's clear and engaging to that target market? That's the first channel. Then you've got your website. You have content, you have search engine optimization, you have social media, email marketing, you have paid advertising like Google Ads or Facebook, and then you have offline marketing. Those are the main channels. Any tactic that you're doing is going to fall into one of those channels. All I want you to do in this 4th step is just write down, what have you done? Do you have a website? Do you have good, clear calls to action? What is it doing for you? Are you active on any social media channels? What are you doing in each of those channels? That's going to help outline where you're currently at so that you can then identify what you're going to focus on next.
I love the idea of starting with acknowledging that you have a plan. Whether you wrote it down or not, if you look back over the last 90 days, there were a series of actions that you took. So either deliberately or by accident, you have a plan and a starting point.
You've been doing something, right? Even if you've been networking and building relationships with people that can refer you business, to me, that goes in offline marketing. You're trying to build a referral network.
Okay, what's next?
Next is what are you going to focus on in the next 90 days? That's your next 90-day plan. So in this section, you're going to look at those 8 channels we just talked about, and you're simply going to put down here, what are you going to do? What actions are you going to take in each of those channels for the next 90 days? Knowing, look, if it's just you and you got 5 hours a week, you may only focus on, I don't know who my target market is and I don't have good messaging. Over the next 90 days, I am going to put that in place. That's okay. But putting this down on paper then helps give you focus, direction, and it eliminates distractions so that, when you see an email from the latest marketing guru next week and they say, okay, you got to be on TikTok. No, I don't. Maybe I'm going to put that on my plan next time around. But right now, I'm only focusing what is on this sheet of paper for the next 90 days.
It gives you an opportunity to manage the chaos that comes at you. Because when you have a plan and you say, this is what I'm going to do, it allows you to create that bucket that you put things in and then close the lid and not really look at it until the end of the quarter. And then you open it up and go, okay, what did I put in there that maybe I want to pull out for the next 90 days?
Yes. And I'm sure you see this with your clients too, Lorraine. they're battling information overload when it comes to marketing. It's just, and when you're feeling overwhelmed, you're being bombarded by all this information, it's impossible for you to create this plan that you can actually follow. So we have to eliminate that distraction and just have a simple plan that's going to allow us to focus and do what we need to do for the next 90 days.
Great. And finally,
last one is you got to have some metrics that you're going to track. Okay. Your goal and your metrics are going to help you determine whether the actions that you're taking are actually working. And so, again, I like to keep things simple. I was a math major, so I can certainly get into the weeds in analytics. But if you have too many analytics, or metrics, it's just going to be too difficult. Pick the one or two most important metrics in the given channels that you're going to focus on and just measure those. Because at the end of the 90 days, you can look at those metrics. So, hey, look, maybe I'm going to focus on my email marketing efforts for the next 90 days. One of my metrics might be how many people I've added to my list. Great. Simple metric. I added 20 new people to my email list in the last 90 days. Great. Well, if you started with a list of 20 and you added 20 more, well, it doubled. I'd say your efforts were pretty good at that point. But the metrics will help you identify, did what I do have an impact? Did it work? So that at the end of these 90 days, I can look and go, okay, this worked. I'm going to continue doing that. This did not. Either I need to make some modifications and test it again, or maybe I'm going to move on to something else, but whether what you did actually worked. Because if you don't have a goal and you don't have metrics to track, you have no idea whether what you're doing is actually having an impact.
Fabulous. Tim, this is such great advice. And I think it's such a wonderfully concise plan that business owners can put into play today. I really want to thank you for dropping by and joining me today.
Thank you. It was great to be here, Lorraine.
Tim, there's going to be a link both to your website and specifically a place that our listeners can find a worksheet for this 90-day marketing plan. So we'll have that in the show notes. I'm going to encourage everybody to go there and look for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
If you've enjoyed today's conversation and you'd like to know more about marketing tips for business owners, subscribe to More Than a Few Words wherever you listen to podcasts. Listen to two. They're short. This has been another episode of More Than a Few Words.